Hello, welcome to Artisan Realty. A little bit of training here for Artisan Realty University. Today we're going to talk about the buyer process flow and then preparing a buyer for what's going to happen at a real estate settlement. So they're the things. So basically, this is a great little exercise for newer agents if they're trying to figure out where they are. Okay, we sold a house. What do I do next? We're getting ready for settlement. What do I do next? Those kinds of things. So we'll have some general commentary on it so you can follow the process flow. You'll know where you stand, and you know if you missed anything, which is kind of good. So the very first thing is to meet a buyer. Kind of simple, getting started right there. By the way, my name is Dan Burney. I'm the broker of Artisan Realty in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And this is primarily for our agents. It's not legal advice. It's not broker advice for anyone who happens to tune in to YouTube to watch this video. You're more than welcome to. But just understand if you have real estate decisions to make, real estate decisions are in context. And it's great it's smart, it's advisable to consult with your real estate attorney or real estate broker and don't make decisions based on what you're seeing and hearing right here. So that being said, let's move forward. So first, you're going to meet a buyer, and ideally, the ideal in the real estate industry is to meet a buyer and have a buyer interview. That's where you interview them, they interview you, and you sign the customary forms, which we'll talk about in a second. But it's a lot smarter than meeting someone at a house for the first time. Don't confuse the issues. A buyer would be very smart to choose an agent first and then choose a house second, as opposed to just choosing a house and the agent that goes along with them. So legally in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, in my opinion, when you meet a buyer, you should give them the equivalent of a consumer notice, sometimes called a CIS, Consumer Information Statement. It's a notice that states who you are in relation to the seller, who you are in relation to the buyer. You may be the agent for the seller. You may have the listing. You may be an agent with a completely different office, but you want to establish your agency relationship at that point. In Pennsylvania, we call it the consumer notice. You give that document to the consumer, and then you offer that buyer the opportunity to work specifically with you with a buyer agency contract. Two forms needed in Pennsylvania to keep legal in Pennsylvania. So that happens before they give you any information that might be used against them if you're negotiating against them, or before they disclose their intent to buy a house. Try to give them that form ahead of time. Keep a copy for yourself. They should sign it. If they don't want to sign it, then of course you can write on the form buyer did not want to sign it and keep a record. The record keeping responsibilities for that are 6 months if you didn't do any future business with them, and then 3 years if you entered into an agency contract or a contract to buy a house. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you're going to suggest that the buyers, if they're not cash buyers, that they get a pre-approval from a lender. It's not mandatory to see one or two or three houses, but at some point, in order to make sure that your time is worthwhile and that they don't have any issues that are going to keep them from buying a house, you want to request that they at least talk to your lender, or they get talk to some lender, a legitimate lender, and furnish you with a pre-approval. And not really because you need it per se, but if they want to buy a house, the seller will need it before they take a house off the market. So hey, let's get it now. Let's get that over with and make sure that we're in good shape with the pre-approval. Um, if they require cash to buy a property, let's make sure that they have cash. A copy of a bank statement, a letter, a reference from a lender. It doesn't have to be very invasive. But before a real estate agent runs around with a buyer, they should have an idea that they are capable of buying the property. If not so much for your sake, then again, for the seller's sake, you want to make sure we're not entering people into people's houses under false pretenses. They like the property. That's great. That means you've walked through a property, and we'll talk about showing properties in a different video here at Artisan University. You can find it. But if they do like a property and they want to make an offer, that's great. I suggest that you have a little timeout with the buyers at that point and say, let me go do some research. You can come with me if you want, but let me do some research. I'll check out the comparable sales. I'll review what has recently sold. I'll learn what I can about the seller's situation, and then I'll get back to you, and we can sit down and we'll form a negotiating strategy. I'll try to give you an objective opinion of value, what it's probably worth, and then we can make an attempt to buy it for the best value for you. Prices and everything, location, condition, all kinds of things are just as important as price, so don't get too lost on that focus. Owning a house is way more important than owning a bad house for a good price. The best way to do that if you're a real estate agent is to mimic the activities of a buyer. So what I mean by that is the mistake would be to go to a computer, sit down on the MLS, and look at pictures of recent sales and pictures of houses and try to form an opinion of value based on the, I'll call it propaganda, that was in there from real estate agents. You're going to miss a lot of things. You're going to miss the cat smells. You're going to miss the busy traffic. You're going to miss the rotten house next door with a car jacked up in the front lawn. All the things that really affect value. If you don't pay attention to that, you're not going to be able to give good advice to your clients. So the ideal is to go to your MLS, print out 5, 6, 7, 8 recent sales and active properties, get in your car, drive by, take a look at the neighborhood, take a look at the house, take a look at the neighbors, look at the pictures while you're there, and try to figure out what that house is in relation to the subject house that your buyers are interested in buying. And basically you're going to bracket it. So if this one is better and the next one is better, then the value's here, and then that one is less and then the value's here. And if you're doing this 5, 6, 7 times, you're going to have a real good idea of the true value of the property as determined by the only people who can determine value, which is the buyers. So you're going to see what the buyers have been willing to pay for properties like this, and then you'll be able to recommend to your buyer what the true value is in the property. Okay, you're going to write an offer. In that offer, there's going to be a contract, an agreement of sale, right? There's going to be a closing cost estimate prepared by you. There's going to be a buyer's financial information form. There's going to be a pre-approval letter from a lender. And one more thing, the seller's disclosure form, which you can get off of the Trend MLS, or you can ask the listing agent for it, and a check. Not necessary in every situation, but generally an agreement of sale should have a check in it. That's the 5 things. So I'll go through it again. You have a pre-approval, a BFI, agreement of sale, a seller's disclosure signed, and a check. I think I got them all right in there. In addition to that, you have an obligation to give people a copy of the closing cost and the seller disclosure before they sign an agreement of sale, okay, before they make the offer. And then in the contract, you're going to see that you have an obligation to give additional documents to a buyer, and 3 of those additional documents are pamphlets from the EPA on radon, mold, and lead. So you can go to the EPA website, copy on those links and drop it in one email as a link, and it'll be a signed, sealed, and delivered. You met that obligation. Not that we're not taking those seriously, but it's just easier to do the links where they have the site where they can do additional research rather than just giving a limited piece of paper at that time. So you're going to write the offer, you're going to deliver it to the listing agent. Listing agent is going to negotiate back and forth, and then you'd have acceptance. Acceptance in Pennsylvania is defined as signed, sealed, and delivered. So basically you don't have a sale until the contract is back in your hands, and you give a copy to your clients, and then you have a transaction. Anything short of that, like a meeting of the minds per se, or a verbal agreement, means nothing, because another contract could come in and bump you out of that transaction. Okay, so you have a signed contract. So what do we do next? Next thing you do is schedule a home inspection with your buyers. We talk about how to schedule home inspections and some of the pitfalls here at Artisan University in a different video. But basically you want to take care that you get a good home inspector, that you are present at the home inspection and the buyers are present at the home inspection as well. And then you want to control the outcome by making sure that the buyers are prepared for the information that they're going to get in a home inspection. Just like a doctor would prepare you for an operation, you need to prepare a buyer for the type of results that are typical in a home inspection. If the home inspection goes okay, and that should happen within 10 days of the agreement of sale being accepted by all parties, also within 10 days is a completed formal mortgage application has to be completed to a reputable lending institution. So you have to kind of time both of these within the same 10 days. The buyer has to have a home inspection and the buyer has to make a mortgage application. If this is on-site water and sewer, the buyer is probably required, and I'd always advise that they have a septic inspection and a water test. I talk about water tests in different parts of Artisan University. And then most buyers in different parts of Pennsylvania would also opt to have a radon test done during the home inspection period. Lots of other little nuances and small things, but basically if you're at this point and you've ordered a home inspection and made sure that the lender knows that the sale was made and he should complete a formal mortgage application, you've given the buyers the option for the additional septic, water, radon, sometimes lead testing that goes on at that time, then you're in good shape at this point. Of course, the home inspection results, radon results, the water and sewer results are going to come back, and you have certain periods of time to negotiate those results, and pay attention closely to the contract. Make sure you're within the confines of your negotiation schedule, and then you'll be in good shape, because you'll probably have it negotiated out. Everything will be okay. And if you're having trouble with those negotiations, refer to Artisan University Success in a Home Inspection video, which is a really good, strong one to help you move forward with that. So where are we right now? We're about 2 weeks after someone signed an agreement of sale on the property. We've had our inspections, we've made our mortgage applications. Now the buyer has to consider a couple different things. You have to order title insurance on behalf of the buyer. You have to instruct the buyer to order homeowner's insurance to have that ready for settlement. And on the 10th day, typically, if there's a second deposit due with the contract of sale, the buyer has to also give a second deposit to the listing agent in accordance with the local custom there. So there we are, about 3 weeks into the transaction, and we've gotten the results of all the inspections. The insurances have been ordered, the title insurance and the homeowner's insurance. You want to make sure that they're both back, that the homeowner's insurance doesn't really come to you, but it goes to the lender. The lender has to have that. And then the title insurance will come back to you. And it's important, if you're a good real estate agent, to review it to see if you have anything strange or unusual on a title report. We'll have another video about how to take a look at that and understand that as we move forward. So then we're at the point where we're maybe 4 weeks from settlement, and we're ready to go. The title insurance policy also should be given to the listing agent, just so they have a copy, so they can begin to work on that. They're responsible for clearing the title if there's any defects to be cleared up. So here we are, a couple weeks from settlement. So what you would do is call the listing agent and check with the listing agent to make sure that the sellers are good on schedule for getting out of the house on time. Ask them if they're moving a day before or a day after. Try to determine if it's important that if it's important to your buyer that they walk through a completely empty house, or are they going to be okay, like most buyers, with a house that's just full of boxes. But certainly they want to have a pre-settlement inspection, which is in the contract, a day before or the day of settlement, to make sure that nothing bad has happened to the house in the meantime, and that the things that are supposed to be included, washers, dryers, refrigerators, are present on the property, and they will have that inspection. Some people go to great lengths and run heating systems and all that kind of stuff all over again. 99% of the time, it's just social. You walk in, maybe the sellers are there, you shake their hands, and you say, boy, you've done a lot of work. Thank you for keeping the property so clean. And you move forward knowing that everything is there, knowing that your insurances will protect most of the major systems in the property. So settlement day has come. The buyer will have to write a check to a title insurance company. So if the buyer has a check to write, that check should be made to the title insurance company. If it's title abstract, for example, they would write their check to title abstract. Most title companies don't like personal checks, so that has to be a certified check, a teller's check from a bank, or money wired into the account in advance. So that's always the question you always get, is who do I make the check out to? That's the person. By law in Pennsylvania, and by tradition in the other states, New Jersey and Delaware, where we operate, the title insurance company or attorneys involved will give a copy of a settlement sheet, which is basically the tally of all the money needed by the buyer and sellers, a day or two before settlement, so they know exactly how much money. There's no surprises. They can review it. So you have the pre-settlement inspection, and then everyone moves to the settlement. You walk into a room with a settlement table, buyers on one side, sellers on the other. If you're not prepared or able to explain all the papers that your buyers are going to have to sign, just mention that to the title clerk, and they'll be glad to go through the papers on your behalf. But sometime in your career choices, you want to learn all that paperwork so you understand exactly what's being signed. Not that you're going to change a word of it, but it's just good to know if you're a professional real estate agent. So that's the first version. A couple little nuances here. Let's say your buyer's buying a condominium. If your buyer's buying a condominium, a couple things happen. One is, from the time that they make an offer on the property, they have 5 days to change their, actually, I'm sorry, there's things called condominium documents. So these are documents that tell you how condominiums are run, whether the condominiums are in good shape, whether they allow pets, who's responsible for the outside maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So from the time that a buyer receives the condominium documents, they have 5 days to change their mind for any reason at all. They don't have to state it. They just say, I'm changing my mind, and they can get out of buying the condominium documents. So if you're a real estate agent, you want to make sure that the listing agent gets those condominium documents to them, that they're available, and that you have a receipt from the buyer documenting the date that they were received so you can start that 5-day ticker moving toward buying the property. Another thing that will happen unique to a condominium is that the seller will provide something to the title company called a 3407 form. A lot of mortgage companies want to see that as well. And that's a document that tells the buyers, hey, the condo fees are paid up in advance. If there's any lawsuits affecting the property, any legal actions, anything unusual going on in the condominium that the lender buyer would like to know about. So you're going to get the condominium documents with the rules and regulations, and you're going to get the 3407 form. All condominiums have all kinds of different ways to deliver the 3407 form, so it's very typical that that's late and it comes in later in the process. And it's not technically it's governed by the contract, but because you can't make people move on that, that's pretty much what happens. That's pretty much it for the process flow from A to Z. Generally, if you've gone through it 3 or 4 times, you're very comfortable with it. But if you're doing this for the first or second or third time, here's just a nice quick little video that will get you to the finish line. You want to keep your broker informed of everything that happens through the transaction. Use me as an assistant to help you negotiate the transaction and understand if you're prepared for settlement. Keep in mind that every transaction is different in some way, and basically it's 1,000 details all taken care of. That's what real estate agents do. We're kind of like a wedding planner in that respect, and that's what we do. That's the buyer's process flow. We're going to do another one right after this about the seller's process flow. Have a great day.